Hello everyone, and welcome to a new series on Willio tutorials. In this series, we're going to be going over how to make a text-based game in Java, and it's going to include stuff like scenes, and objects, and monsters, and items, and all kinds of cool stuff. So the first thing we want to do is make our game class. Now this is going to be the class that holds our main function, so that means it's going to be the first class that's going to be called, and this would be kind of where we store all of our main game stuff. So for example, it'll store our scenes and our player and all of our running functions and everything, and actually start our game. So the first thing we want to do is make a start function in our game, because that's where we're going to start. So we're going to have public void start, and in here all we have to do is say running is equal to true. Now we need to instantiate running, so up at the top of game we're going to say private boolean running is equal to false, so that way the game will not start running until we call the method start. And then now that we have our start function, we want to actually make our game loop. And this is going to be in a function called run. So we're going to say public void run. And in here we're going to make our actual game loop called while running. So this is going to continue while our boolean running is true. So boolean running being true means our game is being able to be played, and if it's false, then that means the game is going to stop. Now we need to call these functions. So in our main function, we're going to say game is equal to new game. And then in here, you're going to say game.start and game.run. And what this is going to do is it's going to call our game start function. It's going to set running to true. And then we're going to call game run. And this is going to start our game's while loop. And this is actually going to be everything that happens in our game in this function. So now what we want to do is make our scene class. So this game is going to be comprised of a whole list of scenes, and each of these scenes are going to have specific things that they can do, and we're going to learn about inheritance and how that works and how we can use that in our games. And so the first thing we want to do is make a scene class. So we're going to say scene class scene. I'm going to delete everything inside of it except for class scene. And we're going to make some variables in it. So the first thing we want our scene to have is a name, because every scene we're going to access by its name. And then we also wanted to have a list of entities, so we're going to say private string name and private list of entities equal new array list of entity. And for now we're going to get an error, and that is because entity is not defined, and we need to make sure to import Java's list. We need to make sure to import Java's lists. So up at the top, say import java.util.star, and then we're going to make our entity class. And this will be pretty empty for now, so just go ahead and make entity class, delete anything inside of it except for class entity, and then we'll leave it there for now. So in our scene class, we want to make our constructor, so that way we can make all of our different scenes. Public scene string name, and then we're going to say this.name is equal to name. Now what this is going to do is it's giving this program the constructor for scene. So anytime we want to make a new scene, we can give it its name, and that scene will store this name variable. And then the scene will also have a list of entities. So the way this program is going to work is it's going to have our game class that's going to have a list of scenes, and it's going to update each of those scenes so that each scene can do something unique and different if it wants to. So in scene, we need to actually have an update function. So we're going to say public void update in scene. Now we're going to take in a game, so called game into the update function, so that way we can access things like the player or the other scenes in the list or any other game functions we want, or to even be able to stop the program. Now that we have this, we want to make sure that we can access these variables, because as you can see right now, they're private. So that means that nothing but this class can see these variables. But we want other classes to be able to get the value of these, right? So we want to say public string get name, and return name, and then public list of entity, get entities, return entities. So these will just be functions that will return our name and our entities list. So also we want to have functions that will allow us to interact with this entity list easily. When we want to add an entity to our scene, we don't want to have to say scene.getEntities.add whatever. We want to just be able to say, okay, add whatever. So we're going to say public void add entity e, and then say entities.add e. So this kind of gives us a little shortcut. So we also want to have a remove for this. So we're going to say public void remove entity e, and then it's going to say entities.remove e. At this point, we have our basic structure set up for our scene. And what we want to do now is go into our game class and make a whole list of all of our scenes. To do this, we're going to type private list of scenes is equal to new array list of scene, and make sure to remember these parentheses. And then we also need to remember to import java.util.star to allow us access to these Java classes. Now that we have this list, we want to have a function that will be the place that we put all of our scenes into the game and instantiate these scenes. So just type public void setup scenes and leave it there for now. We'll come back to that later. Then in our while loop, we want to update whatever our current scene is, right? So we want to have scenes.getCurrent, scenes.getCurrent.update. And it's going to pass in this, because this will reference this game class, and we want to make sure to pass in the game that this update function requires. But now we need to say what the current variable is. So up at the top, write private int current is equal to 0. So this way it'll start on the first scene in the list. Let's go ahead and add a new scene by saying scenes.add a new instance of scene with the name of main menu. And so let's go ahead and actually print out in this update system.out.println hi, and run. Now it should repeatedly print out hi. However, we are getting a pretty bad exception. And the reason is that because we are never actually calling this setup scenes function. So we want to do this at the beginning of our program because we want it to do it before we call any other things with the scenes. So just in our start, because this happens before our run, as you see down here, we're just going to call setup scenes. Now if you run, it should work properly. There we go. You can see when we're printing hi, and it's lacking out a program because it's saying so much hi. So the next episode, we're going to be going over the main menu class, and then in the episode following, we're going to go over how we can make some entities. So I hope you guys all enjoyed. See you guys next time.